These three videos, the topic is seeing what is, and in this video, the title is "We Are All Blind, Though Some Are More Blind Than Others." Two gunfighters were about to engage in a duel, and a space was cleared for them in the saloon. One was an unimposing, tiny little man, but was quick and accurate with the gun. The other man was a huge, hefty fellow, and he protested. He said, this isn't right. This isn't fair. He's shooting a larger target. And so the little fellow, who was quick with the gun, was also quick to make a suggestion. Turning to the saloon owner, he said, chalk out a man about my size on my opponent, and any bullet that hits outside the line doesn't count. Sometimes we think what counts the least may actually count the most. And sometimes what we think counts the most may actually count the least. How is it that our judgment and our sense of discernment, seeing what is, gets so skewed? It gets skewed because we do not see what is. We do not see what is true and good and just and right and loving. One spiritual teacher compared the human condition to a poor drunk standing outside the park late at night, beating on the fence, saying, "Let me out." In the first chapter of John's Gospel, Philip becomes a disciple of Jesus. And Philip believes he sees the truth and wisdom embodied in the person of Jesus, in the life of Jesus, in the words of Jesus. And so Philip goes and gets his friend Nathanael, and he says to Nathanael, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, "We have found the one who can speak truth and bring hope to our people, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael is extremely skeptical. And Nathanael says, in response to Philip, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" The brilliant New Testament scholar R.E. Brown suggests that Nathanael's response to Philip may have been a local proverb reflecting the animosity between the towns of Cana and the towns of Nazareth. Clearly, Nathanael is expressing a negative bias towards Nazareth, isn't he? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Isn't it amazing that in light of the events that transpired at our nation's capital, which was nothing less than domestic terrorism incited by the speech and the rhetoric of the president, isn't it amazing that according to a recent ABC Ipsos poll, 61% of the president's political party do not believe he did anything wrong? 61%. Now, many of us hear that, and we are at a kind of loss to explain it. How is that possible? Surely they heard the words that we heard. The president has been telling us for weeks that the election was stolen. He has been propagating all kinds of conspiracy theories as evidence that it was stolen. And those who were gathered on that day when Congress was meeting in the Capitol to certify the electoral votes, he told them that what Congress was doing was wrong, that it should not be done, that they should march to the Capitol, and that they should be strong, and that they should fight like hell. And that is what they did. This past Wednesday, when the Senate Majority Leader, who has enabled this president for 4 years, said the president incited violence, and that he was glad that the Democrats were going to impeach him, yet still 61% of McConnell's party, Trump's party, believe the president was not responsible. I mean, it's hard to make sense of it, really. However, I know this. If we are not open to see, we will not see. If we do not want to see, we will not see, even when it's clear and obvious to everyone else. The people who stormed the Capitol were all people who did not want to see what is clear and obvious, namely that Trump, their candidate, lost an election overwhelmingly, and numerous lawsuits and recounts have verified that reality. The president's own chief security appointee called it the most safe and secure election in American history. And let us dispel any notion that it is just one kind of people or one group of people who are blind to what is. What we have learned about those who joined the parade of destruction is that it included all kinds of people. It included CEOs, it included business owners, it included off-duty police officers, it included ex-members of the military, and it included many professing Christians and, as we would expect, Christian ministers. Spiritual and moral blindness afflicts all of us to some degree. The educated and the uneducated, the well-to-do and the down and out, the elite and the disenfranchised. We are all blind, but some are more blind than others. Today, there are many Christians who simply cannot see what is. They cannot discern what is real. They do not know what is true. And the reason I know this is because I was one of them. I speak from my own personal experience. And so the judgment that I render is a judgment that I render on myself. One reason Christians cannot see what is real and discern what is true is because the Christianity that they embrace is too reductionistic and too exclusive. Some Christians reduce their faith to the afterlife, making it totally irrelevant in this life. And I know that from personal experience because I was one of those Christians that reduced faith to the life hereafter rather than focusing on what it meant in this life. Some Christians reduce their faith to hot-button issues. They turn God into a cheerleader for their negative causes. They think God is against all abortions, or they think God is against against LGBTQ rights, or they think God is against certain groups or kinds of people who are different than they are in some way. And apparently some think today that God is even against democracy and free and fair elections. When I pastored in Maryland a number of years ago, A member of the church I pastored in Waldorf was a lieutenant with the Capitol Police, and he invited me to have a prayer at one of their graduation ceremonies. And while I was there, he had arranged for me to have a visit with Dr. Lloyd Ogilvie, who at the time was the chaplain of the Senate. And so in my conversation with Reverend Ogilvie, I asked, from your perspective, Dr. Ogilvie, what do you think is the greatest need in the church today? And without hesitation, Reverend Ogilvie said, for religious people to know God. And of course, when he mentioned religious people, he was talking primarily about Christian people. For Christian people, for religious people to know God. That was true then, and it is true today. Now, I am by no means claiming to have any kind of superior knowledge of God. I certainly do not know God as much as I could know God or as much as I should know God. And I have a lot of growing to do in my awareness and experience and knowledge of God. But I know enough of God and have experienced enough of God to know that religion that is reductionistic and religion that is exclusive is religion at its worst, and God is not in it. It is the product of prejudice and human ego. And once again, I speak from my own personal experience because I have struggled and continue to struggle with my ego. And over the course of my journey, I have had to shed many prejudices, and I'm sure I still need to shed a few more. We are all blind, but some of us are more blind than others. Now, in my next video, I'm going to talk about breaking out of that blindness.